Hi everybody, this is a welcome video for your stats class. My name is Kevin Carlson. I'm your professor for this class. You can call me Kevin if you want. You can call me Professor Carlson if you want a more formal way of addressing me. Or you can call me Professor Kevin. That's fine with me also if you want to kind of mix the two of formal and informal. But don't call me Mr. So you can call me Doctor. You can call me Dr. Kevin or Dr. Carlson if you want also, but not Mr. And before I begin going over the class, I want to sort of address one of the common issues. Not everybody in class, but I'd say at least half of you, based on my experience, are probably worried that you're going to fail this class. And what I'll say is if you put your time in and you try hard, you're going to pass. 95% sure you're going to pass based on my experience. One thing I'll say about that is being an online class, what that really means is that you're going to be spending time watching video lectures and working on the homework and working on the labs. And so the homework and labs you would do anyway on your own, even if we were meeting in person, but that face-to-face time that we would have in the class will be translated to watching videos. And so, do watch those videos like you are in class. I know that sometimes people say that's hard to concentrate on videos versus being in a class, but do try hard to spend time watching the videos. And you're in control of the video watching, and so if there's a video lecture that's an hour and a half and you don't want to sit for an hour and a half and listen to that, maybe budget about a half an hour, watch a half an hour, see where there's a good break, where there's a logical break to sort of stop and take a break or come back to it later. There's nothing wrong with that. So you don't need to watch the lectures as a whole if you don't want to. So regulate your time with the videos according to your attention. So the other thing too here is, again, more than half of the people in class probably think they're going to fail. And what I'll say is that's not true if you try hard, if you work on it. Also, just to sort of let you know a little bit about my own background, I grew up as a poor kid, government housing all the time, food stamps all the time, sometimes on welfare. And for sure, in my experience going through, school, especially in high school, poor kids were treated differently. In fact, in our school, we had a horrible system, which I think schools still do this in some manner. There was 1s, 2s, and 3s, and you actually saw that on any sort of document that you got your grades or your schedule for the semester. You would see your number. And 1s were the good kids, were the kids that they thought would go to college. And you can guess that, most of the 1s were rich kids or kids that had, at least a bit of money. And then there was 2s. And the 2s were sort of like the average kids, no big problems, but, probably going to get B's and C's, but the school basically was saying they don't really worry about them. And then there's the 3s. And so the 3s were the kids that were, according to the school, troublemakers and would just barely pass their classes and barely get through high school. So these are the labels that the school used. And what I'll say is I was probably a 2.9. And so I was in some pretty bad classes because the teachers didn't give a crap because the kids in it were 2.9s or 3s. And so they were basically told by the school, don't worry about them, just kind of have your body in the class and then pass them on so we don't have to worry about them anymore. So I myself experienced a lot of low expectations in terms of school. And where these low expectations often show up are classes, a lot of classes, but a lot in science classes and math classes. So being a poor kid and being, 2.9, according to the school, I was not motivated to take math classes. I took only the bare minimum of math classes to get my high school diploma, which was, I think, one. So I took one math class in high school, and then when I got to community college, so I sort of slid into community college. So when I went to community college, I also took the bare minimum. Only the math I had to take. So I had to take a remedial math because I didn't have enough math in high school, and then I had to take some sort of college algebra class or something like that. And that's all I took except for my stats class in psychology. But I took the bare minimum of math because I didn't think I was good at math. I didn't like math. And it wasn't until I went to grad school and actually took a few stats classes in grad school, and finally with one stat class it really clicked, and I was one of the best students in the class. And from then on, I was always one of the best students in my stats classes or my math classes. And it really occurred to me that I could always have done it if I had a decent teacher, or if I had people encouraging me. And so one of my main messages to you is that if you expect that you might fail, that you're not good at math, you come in saying, I'm not good at math, I can't think about math. I'm going to tell you that those beliefs are not you. They don't reflect your ability. They don't reflect who you are. Those are messages that other people told you. And they told you that probably way back when, that we don't even realize that those messages came from the outside. Myself, I experienced that myself. And so I heard those messages probably from ages, or I should say grades, like grades 4, 5, 6, 7 to 12. So throughout that whole span of school, when you're supposed to be learning math, I was told I couldn't do it, that I wasn't smart. And it wasn't until I reached grad school that I was able to realize that that's not true. So I'm going to say the same thing is true about you, because if you have an intact brain, and you do, as long as your brain is intact, you can learn statistics, you can learn math. So there's no such thing as somebody who can't do math, who's not good at math. It's just a matter of trying, and hopefully I'm a good teacher and helps you understand the statistics and the math so that you can actually do well in this class. And I'll give sort of an example of how this can happen in this class. And so we're not in person, but this is an in-person example. But I see this also happen online. And so I give makeup exams. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So I give makeup exams mainly because I know that people are often anxious about taking the exams, and they might not do so good the first time they go through. So I have makeup exams, and so in this class, basically it was right before COVID hit. So there was somebody in class who was very afraid of math, said that they couldn't do math. And I remember that we were having a review session for the first exam, and she was literally shaking when we were doing our review. I could just see how nervous she was. And, during the review, I tried to calm her down and tried to get her to relax, get her to think about the steps that she needs to do to solve the problems. And, you could kind of see her demeanor change. And so as she tried more things and she got a little bit more confident, she kind of had sort of a smile on her face. I wouldn't say it was like a super fantastic smile, but at least she had changed her mood and was more confident. And so we had her first exam, and in her first exam, she took it, and she got a C. And I thought, this is probably pretty good. And I was guessing that she wouldn't take the makeup because I thought, this is probably just so nerve-wracking for her that getting a C was probably enough. And then what happened is she showed up for the makeup exam, and she got an A. And by the way, she got an A in a course also. And so, if you would have looked at her, coming into the class, coming into the first exam, you would have said, oh, she looks like a wreck. There's no way she's going to even pass. But she started to believe in herself. She did the work. she started to learn that she could actually understand stats and math. And, the first step was a C. And then for her, the next step was an A. Maybe for other people, they'll get a C, and I'll say that, maybe 20% of people stay at the C for various reasons. And then, probably another 50% go to the B level. And so they start getting the B and they sort of end up with a B. And then there's probably, 20 to 30% of people who go to the A level. And so, I'm not quite sure where you'll end up, but I'll say for sure you'll get to that C level. And once you're at the C level, start thinking, I'm going to get a B. And then if you're at the B level, you can start thinking, hey, I should go for the A. So again, a big thing about this class is sort of your mental attitude. So you want to have a positive mental attitude, and you want to realize that if you're coming into this class saying, I'm going to fail it, I can't do math, that's not you. That's people outside telling you you can't do it, probably from a pretty early age, that you don't realize that's not really you. So what I would recommend is change your attitude. Start thinking that you can do it. It'll take a little bit of work, but you can do it, you can learn, and you will pass this class. And you can use me as an example. And as part of my role as the professor is to try to help you succeed, obviously. So I hope that the components of the class, the lecture, the video lectures, help you understand the material. Typically in the video lectures, there'll be examples and practice problems with the answers. So you can go over them, and I'll go over the answers in the lecture videos. And then we're going to have homeworks. And then for the homeworks, they're mainly going to be, problems that you're going to be calculating. And so there'll be keys for the homeworks, which I'll talk about later, but there'll be keys that help you review your answers. And if you're not sure about your answers, you can always ask me about them. But in general, there's some pretty good keys to highlight the steps in the process and to help you review what you've done and to see where you might have went astray. So we'll have those keys, and then the labs, which we'll talk about later, have the same thing. So the labs will have keys also. I think for the most part, there'll be video keys, where I'll go over the solution to the labs. And so all of these things, the lectures, the labs, the homeworks, are meant to give you some practice in the stuff of the class and to help you succeed. And then you can see here, if you don't know already, we're totally online. And so here's some of the details here. Here's my email address. And so definitely if you need to contact me, email me. You can email me through a Chafee account here or through Canvas. I would suggest if you need to communicate and you don't put comments in your assignments, especially if they've been graded already. In general, I would not put comments on your assignments unless you only want me to see it right before I grade it. Why? Because I won't see those things. I don't know they're there. And so if you put some sort of comment like, oh, I'm having trouble with this, can I have a little bit of an extension to understand this more? I won't see it until it's too late. I won't see it until I grade it. And so I would rather have you email me something like that. And then definitely if I've graded it and you put a comment in Canvas on the assignment and say something like, I looked at the key and I don't understand it, I might not see that comment because I'm not going to go back into that assignment. And so if you need to contact me through email. Again, either the Chafee email that's on the syllabus here or through the Canvas email system. And then another way to sort of help you succeed in the class is, if you want a more personal touch, is to come to the weekly check-in sessions. They're optional because we don't have any agreed upon time for this class. So to expect you to attend a certain time that I set is unreasonable. So they are optional, obviously. But, please come to them if you need some help. And so those sessions are each Thursday at 4 o'clock, obviously on Zoom. And so the link is there. and then there's a passcode. I'm not sure if it will require a passcode for you to put it in to get into the session. That's something new. They weren't requiring that during the summer, so it's something new in the fall. So if you do need a passcode, it's right there also. So everybody's welcome to come to this, even if you are pretty certain about things. So you can come, just to meet me and get a more personal feel. Or I think a lot of times people really enjoy coming to these sessions because they see other students in the class. And oftentimes in an online class, you might not see anybody else. And so this is a chance to meet other people in the class, talk with them. I've had students set up, study sessions and connections with each other through those sessions also. So that more sort of social aspect of learning you can get from the weekly sessions we'll have on Zoom. And of course, those things are there for you to ask questions. So ask any questions that you have. So those questions could be just something about the class, or it could be about the content of the class in terms of a lecture, or it could be some questions about the homework, or about the labs, anything, or about the upcoming exams. So any questions you have, you can ask. Oftentimes I have people that come to these sessions saying that they just want to hear what other people's questions are. So they might not have any specific questions, but they learn a lot from hearing other people's questions. So that's each week, 4:30 on Thursdays, so please come to those. Even if you feel relatively solid in the class, I think there's a lot of benefit to coming to those things. So I'm going to go over the syllabus, and I've kind of highlighted some of the key aspects of the class already, but so we're on Canvas, so I think you should already know that. So everything that you're going to do is on Canvas. So the textbook, this semester I'm actually making it optional. I had required it in the past with sort of a way for students to save money, which is that they could get an old version of the textbook if they want. So if you don't want this newest edition, you can get a older edition if you want to. So there's no problem with that. Nothing's really changed in statistics. All I'll say is make sure that if you have the textbook, that you're reading the chapters that align with the topic. So if you get an old version of the textbook, it's possibly that they've shuffled the numbers of the chapter. So just make sure that you have the right chapter that you're reading for the topic. But again, it's optional. So, I'm going to leave it up to you, basically. So some people will do fine enough with the lectures and other course materials, the labs and the homeworks. They don't feel like they need anything else. They can understand it through that, and that's fine. And other people might want the textbook for supplemental readings, for additional practice questions, things like that. So it's really up to you about how you learn best. And so you might even just wait. You might wait for the first week and see how it goes with just the video lectures and the labs and the homework. And if you feel like you need a little bit more extra help, then you can get the textbook. But again, you can get the textbook online, older editions, for pretty cheap. So you don't need the newest version. If you want the newest version, you can get it, but you don't need the newest edition. You can get an older version. So just make sure that you check your emails and check Canvas. So if I need to get in touch with you, if I have a question, I'm going to email your Chafee email or possibly email you through Canvas, so make sure you check those things. Also, I'll put announcements on Canvas, so make sure you check those announcements. Those are very important to keep up with. And so that's our big way of communicating, is through email and through announcements. So here's a part of the syllabus. I'm not going to go through it over in details. You can actually look through this if you want to. It probably doesn't make a lot of sense now because a lot of those words you'll say, what does that mean? Because we haven't had class yet. So this might be something you might want to look at after the class and say, oh, what did I learn? There's kind of a list there of things you've learned in the class. So here's important dates. Make sure you look at those if those are relevant to you. And in terms of the assessment and the grading, just a couple things here. One is that there's a lot of smaller assignments. So again, there's a lot of homeworks and labs, and it's really important to keep up on those. And one thing I'll say here is, from my observation, there's a big difference between people who start earlier in the week versus people who wait to the last minute. So people who start earlier in the week are usually a lot more relaxed and do better in class. So I'm going to really beg you to start early in the week. Work on the stuff early. Watch the lecture videos early in the week and work on the homework early. Work on the labs early. Don't do it at the last minute. This is an online class, so the philosophy, I believe, in an online class is to give you flexibility. Because people have different work schedules, some people have families, people have different responsibilities, and so it's meant to give you flexibility. And so I set the due dates oftentimes later in the week, but that doesn't mean that's when you start working on it. So I oftentimes watch when people submit things, and people get in real trouble when they start working on the stuff on Sunday. So if something's due on Sunday, you can see that they've all of a sudden they're starting to watch the videos. They're trying to get a homework done. They're trying to get a lab done. They're trying to watch another video. It's just a mess. So please don't do that. So the due date is not when you should start working on it. The due date is the very last time that you should be doing it. So start early. Save yourself a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety by working early. So you're going to do better in this class if you work early. Also, if you can think about it, if you start working early, you're watching the video lectures, you're trying to do the homework, you're trying to do the labs, and if you don't understand something, there's that Thursday Zoom session at 4:30. So if you started to try to do something, you're not quite sure about it, you can ask about it in the Zoom session. But if you're starting late in the week, you're starting Saturday or, like a lot of people do, unfortunately, try to do it on Sunday, the day it's due, it's a mess. There's no opportunity to ask me about it. And what I'll say is that probably 90% of the drops in this class over the last year, since we've went online, are people who in the first week or two work at the last minute. And so, for example, I had somebody, I think it was in the spring, it might have been fall, who I knew wasn't doing the stuff. And they did the first assignment last minute, and then they were doing the second assignment last minute, and they emailed me 4 hours before it was due, and said they didn't understand it at all. And I'm like, whoa, that's a really bad time to ask that 4 hours before it's due. I might not even see your email. And so don't get in that position. Don't put yourself in a hole to start with. So I know I'm kind of banging that drum a lot, but that's something I've noticed, is that if people do it at the last minute and then they're not sure what's going on, then they're pretty much dead in the course. They're not going to survive. So don't put yourself in that hole. Start early, start thinking about it early. Start understanding things early. There's nothing wrong with taking a little bit of time to learn this. And so one thing that I'll say is that sometimes statistics is like a foreign language, because there's different terms, there's different things, and I try to translate that for you, try to make it more human, if you will. But oftentimes people need a little bit of time to digest that stuff. So oftentimes people might need a couple rounds of the material to kind of understand it. They might kind of say, first time, yeah, I kind of get some of that, but I'm not totally there. And then the second time, it sinks in. So give yourself that second time for it to sink in. Because again, people that are doing it at the last minute are, for one, they're not really concentrating on the lecture. What they're doing is they're thinking, oh my gosh, I got 5 hours before I have to do all my homeworks and my labs for this week. And they're trying to watch a lecture to help them do the homework, and that's not really a good way of doing it, because you can't think well in that state. And so give yourself a little bit of space to let it soak in. Let yourself understand stuff. So give yourself a break. Make it easy on yourself. Don't wait till the last minute. So staying on track, as it says here, is very important. So there's not really more work in this class compared to another lab class. It's just that it's a steady workload. So you want to be able to put in your work every week and to stay on track, and then you're going to be fine. So all the deadlines for all the assignments are on Canvas. So make sure you check Canvas for the deadlines, and don't assume it's a time of 11:59. So make sure you check the deadline date and time on Canvas. And so here's the stuff we're going to be doing in terms of your grades and in terms of the activities that you're going to be doing. And so I already mentioned some of these, but I'll sort of go over it again here. So we have homework assignments. And homework assignments will tend to be, in general, about solving problems. So the homework assignments will tend to be about solving problems. And what you'll do for the homework assignments is typically you can write out your answers, because a lot of times there'll be formulas and things like that, and those things are hard to type. So what you can do is you can write them out on a piece of paper, solve your problems, and then what you can do is you can take a photo or a scan of your paper and upload that into Canvas. And I would recommend that you get used to trying to have one file. So have one file, even if you have multiple pages, to upload onto Canvas for your homework. It will let you upload several files, but if you practice having just one file, it's a good practice for the exams, because for the exams, you can only have one file per problem on the exam. And so if you can learn how to scan, take photos, and have that be one file, that would be very useful. There's various ways to merge these things. I'm sure you can Google that and find out, or look in YouTube and find out a tutorial about how to do that. An easy way for doing that is oftentimes you can attach these photos into a Word document. And so you can put it in a Word document, and that Word document will be saved as one file, but it will have several pictures on it. So you can consider doing that. Try to keep the size of the files relatively small. Not super small that I can't read it, but try to keep it a little bit small if you can, so that Canvas doesn't get like a huge amount of storage space used for these things. And so this next paragraph here about the homework assignments is also true for the labs. So I'm going to give you all the points on your homeworks and on your labs if you give it a good try. So, obviously people could copy off each other if you want to, but you're not going to learn from that. So don't do it, because you don't get any more points for that. So I'm going to give you all the points if you give a good faith effort on the assignment. Because for me, it's you trying to learn. If you get some things wrong, that's fine. You can look at the key to help you. So if you do it and there's some things that are wrong, you'll see that in the key. And so what I'll say too on this is, if you get 5 points, don't think, oh, I know everything. I got 5 points. No, it doesn't mean that. It means you gave it a good try, and I'm going to give you all the points because you gave it a good learning try. But it's your responsibility to look at the keys to make sure if you got anything wrong, and to understand why you got that thing wrong. And if you don't understand it from the key, to ask me about it. And so again, I'll give you all the points if you give it a good try, but it's your responsibility to look at the key to make sure that you understood all the stuff in the assignments, so that you learned everything. And that's the same thing that's going to happen with the SPSS labs. So the labs, same philosophy. You're going to get all the points if you give it a good try, but you should always look at the key to make sure you understand the material. And so the labs, how the labs are different is it's going to be focused in on SPSS. So SPSS is a statistical program that runs analyses. So it does it really fast. So it's really useful to understand this. And so for this class, because we're an online class, the emphasis in this class is going to be interpreting output. So you'll see the labs as we go on through the course. And the labs will have, essentially what it will have is some information. So usually for each lab, there's a video. And so in that video, I talk about the analyses in that lab. I'll show you how it's done. And then in that video, I will show you how to interpret the output of SPSS in terms of the statistical analyses. So there'll be a video that will show you how to do the analyses and how to interpret the output from the analyses. And so your labs are going to cover both of those things. The first part, how to do the analyses, it's going to be pretty simple. It's like bullet points. So click on this, click this, do this, press OK, that type of stuff. And so for the first part about how to do the analyses, it's going to be a bullet point description of how to do it from watching me do it on the videos. And then the bigger part, the really important part, well, I shouldn't say really important. The operational part is important, but the really, really big part of the lab is to do the interpretation of the output. So the lab questions will often focus in on interpreting the output from the analyses from the computer. And again, the video for the lab will show you sample output. And what I'm going to do is in those videos, I circle the output and say, here's the thing to look at, and here's what this means. And so I'm going to give you a step-by-step video process that you can use to help interpret the output for the lab. So in a lab, there will be outputs for you to use and to analyze. And again, you're going to get all 5 points for this if you give it a good try. But again, check the keys to make sure that you did it properly. For most of the labs, there'll be video keys, but not necessarily for all of them, but for most of the labs, there'll be a video key where I will show you the output, go through the output that you had, and show you where the answers are essentially and how to write up the answers. And again, if you don't understand something from the key, you can, the preferred way is you come to the Zoom session so everybody can learn about it, and then we can talk about it more personally, but you can also email me if you have a question about those things. And then we have our exams, and the exam should not be surprises. There's two things, is that for every exam, there's going to be a study guide. And so in general, I don't believe in study guides for most of my courses, but for this class, I think it's a useful thing because I think people find there's a lot of pieces, and the study guides will help you collect those pieces and put them into bigger chunks that will help you study for the exam and learn the material. That's the big thing. The exams are meant to sort of reflect your learning. So hopefully the exams are a way that you can learn the material well. They're not non-cumulative exams, the first 4, which means that they're just for each of our units. So we have 4 units. So each of the 4 non-cumulative exams are for each unit by itself. And then, like I mentioned before, we'll have, for those 4 non-cumulative exams, we'll have makeup exams for them. Typically, it will be the following week. So I'll do the best I can to grade the exams and get your feedback so that you can determine whether you want to retake the exam to do the makeup exam. And so the makeup exams, anybody can take these. So, even if you got 98 out of 100 and you say, I want to get 100, you can take the exam, no problem. And what will happen is that you'll get your highest score. So let's say you got a B. Let's say you got 85 and you're thinking, well, I don't want to mess up my 85, so maybe I shouldn't make it up. But yeah, you can, because your lowest score will be 85. You got that on the first exam. If you get 84 on the second one, I'm not going to take points away from you because you just tried it again. That wouldn't be fair. So anybody can retake it, and you'll get the highest score. So if you get an 85, you can say, I'm going to shoot for A. And if you get an A, that's fantastic. But if you get a lower score, it won't hurt you. And then obviously there's a lot of people who make up the exam because they want to pass the exam. So it's not uncommon that maybe people will get a 50 or a 60 perhaps the first time. They panic. They're not quite sure how to think about it. And then when we review the exam, they start seeing, okay, this is how I should approach it. They calm down a little bit more. They're more relaxed. And a lot of times people score, 10 points, 20 points better on the second try. So the makeups are available for everybody, and it certainly is an opportunity for you to improve your learning, especially if you're a person who gets nervous when taking exams. This will help you a lot. And then we'll talk more about the exams as we get to them, but since we're here, there's actually two parts to each of these non-cumulative exams. One part is what I call problems. So those problems are often things that are reflected in the homework. And so those are, computations, you're calculating things. And so those are part of the problem parts of the exam. And I failed to mention this before, but the homework stuff isn't coming out of nowhere. So those problems that you're going to be doing on your homework, there's usually at least 2 examples, practice problems that we do in the video lectures. So in the video lectures, there'll typically be 2 practice problems. Usually what I'll do is I'll usually have a problem and I'll run through it myself. So I'll have the problem and I'll do it. I'll give you a model about how to solve it. And then there'll be a second practice problem where I'll say, okay, here's some data, and now you do it. And then you go ahead and you do it based on what I just did. And then in the video, there'll be the answer, and I'll work through the problem. So you'll have 2 practice problems before you get to the homeworks. And so again, the homework is a good reflection of the problems part of the exams. And then the second part of the exam is what's called conceptual. So conceptual are more like short essays. I shouldn't say short essays, short answers to short essays. So some sort of things that you express in words. So if you want to think about it, a lot of the problem stuff is expressed in numbers and formulas. And then the conceptual is expressed in words, ideas that are expressed in the lecture. And so again, those shouldn't be a surprise based on the lecture and also based on study guides. So the study guides will go over everything that is on the exam. And so there's those 2 parts, and you can take those parts on separate days if you want to. So right now it looks like I'm going to sort of have the exams open up Thursday after our Zoom session, and then they close by Saturday night in general. And so you have sort of 2.5 days to do each exam. And so if you want to, you can take one part of the exam, the problems, on Saturday, and then take the conceptual part on Sunday, or sorry, mix it up. You can take the problems part on Friday, and then you can take the conceptual part on Saturday. Just do on Saturday, not Sunday. And so you can do that way. So that has 2 advantages, is that sometimes people will say that there's different types of studying for the problems versus the conceptual. So it might be useful to have that different type of studying in your head for the different exams and have them on different days. And then also it takes pressure off of you because it splits up with the exam. Instead of having one big long exam with those 2 parts, you have a shorter exams. And so it puts less pressure on you. And so, again, I want to emphasize work early. So you want to work early so you can do that. So you can do one on Friday, you can do one on Saturday. That will take a lot of pressure off of you. I do see, again, there's people that do the last minute thing. And I look Saturday afternoon and I see there's a number of people who haven't done either. And I'm thinking, wow, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself because now you have to take 2 parts of the exams in a few hours. And I imagine people feel rushed and don't feel prepared when they do that. So please don't do that. Work ahead, plan ahead, and split up the 2 exams. That will help you a lot. There is a cumulative final exam. And what I'll say is that the cumulative final exam is different from the previous exams. So I know that you've probably been in some classes where the final exam is kind of, you're doing the same stuff over again that you did in exam 1, 2, and 3. So it's kind of doing the same stuff. This final exam should be doing different stuff. And this final exam is based a lot on the labs. And so there's a lot of SPSS aspects to the final exam. It's not the whole part of the exam, but there's a good significant part to it. And so when you're doing your labs throughout the semester, I would keep them well organized because you're going to be using those to study for the final exam. So here's a summary of the points. You can look at that. You can look at this stuff. Here's the grading scale. Accommodations. So if you have any DPS accommodations, and you have it for exams, you'll get extra time on the exams. If you feel like you have a disability related to exams and the assignments and things like that, you should contact the DPS office and make sure that you have your paperwork completed for the semester. So academic integrity, so definitely read about this. And so there's some hints here. So one of my hints here is that make sure you take your own specific notes in your own words. And so don't cut and paste things from textbooks or other sources, because oftentimes that sounds weird. Put things in your own words. So if you're taking notes, take those notes in your own words. Don't cut and paste things. That helps you learn your own way and express things in your own words, and this will make it less likely that you'll plagiarize. And also and this is a common theme, right? Start working early. So my observation is that if people are stressed and feel rushed, they're more likely to give in to temptation and try to cheat. So a good way to avoid having that temptation is to start early and feel very relaxed when you do your exams, for example. And so I'll just sort of give a warning is that, in this class, if it seems like at least one student per semester when we're online cheats and I catch them, and they fail because of that. I don't fail you automatically, but I give you a 0 on your exam on both parts. And so if you cheat on one question, you'll get a 0 for all aspects of the exam, so you lose 100 points, and you can't do a makeup. So if you cheat on the first exam, you can't take the makeup. If you cheat on the second exam, you lose all your points. So if you had originally a score of, let's say, 60 on the first exam, you lost those 60 points. So you have a 0 for the exam itself, for the whole exam. And so I would recommend not doing that because it's not worth it. If you don't know something, just take the hit. So if you don't know something, take the 5 points off or the 10 points off. You can survive that. So if you lose 5 or 10 points on a question, you can survive that. You can't. It's going to be very hard to survive a 100-point loss. So please don't do that. That's my sort of guidelines. And so again, I think the thing is to have some confidence and feel relaxed. And also know that you might not know everything. There's nothing wrong with missing a question or two. It's even, let's say you miss 3 questions and they're 30 points. You can survive that. You might not pass that exam, but through your other exams and your other assignments, you'll survive. You'll pass the class. So don't panic. Don't panic and do something that is hard to recover from. So this is a lab class, and so you should schedule about 13 hours per week working on this class. This is sort of on average for most people. Some people, if they're really getting it, maybe they'll spend less hours. If you are having a little bit of trouble, you need more time, you might spend more hours, but 13 hours seems to be the magic number for this class, for any lab class that you're taking over an 18-week period for a regular semester. And so these hours include watching video lectures, doing the homeworks and doing the labs and studying for the exams and taking the exams. And so I do think that the workload is manageable. It's just that you are in charge of it. There's no classes that we're meeting and you have to be there in class, so nobody's going to force you to come and watch these lectures. You have to make sure that you do it on your own. So please do that, because that really is the big difference. People who don't spend enough hours in the class have a very high drop rate or failure rate or withdrawal rate. But if you spend the hours, you're going to be in good shape. So just let me know how it's going. That's the nice thing about the Zoom sessions. It's a good time to talk about how the class is going. Again, you can read these parts of the syllabus. I'm not going to go through all parts of the syllabus. And then we have our class schedule. And so, just real quickly, obviously you should be, if you're watching this video by this point, you probably have gone through the syllabus, so congratulations. If you're uncertain about your mathematics skills, your math skills, you can look at Appendix A in the textbook and review that and sort of go over that. But basically in this class, the most complicated thing that you would need to know is order of operations. That's really the most complicated thing. We don't have any things that are operationally any more difficult than that in terms of math stuff. Although the concepts we cover are more complex, but they're concepts that you'll learn in this class. So I would say make sure you know how to do exponents and order of operations. If you don't know how to do order of operations, please learn that. And so I'm not going to go through everything here, obviously, but you'll see that in general, we'll have 1 to 2 chapters per week. And for the most part, we will have homework and labs each week. And what I'll do is I'll make a video for each week introducing what we have for each week. So I'm not going to do all of it here. That doesn't make sense. So I'll do it week by week. So you see here is that we have Unit 1. Unit 1 goes through week 1 to 3. So we have our first exam due before Labor Day weekend. We have that first unit, and then there's a makeup exam after Labor Day that week. Again, I'll give specific details about the makeup exams later. We have our second unit here. Our second unit goes for 4 weeks, it looks like. Yep, 4 weeks. And then we'll have that second exam early October with a makeup exam. And then we'll have the third unit, which lasts 3 weeks, essentially. And then we'll have the third exam before Halloween. And then we'll have a makeup exam, and then we have the last unit. The last unit will go through the last month of the class. And then we'll have our last exam, our non-cumulative exams for the semester, essentially before the last week of class, and then the last week of class we'll have a makeup for that if people need it. And the last week is an overview for the course, and that's going to be used as a study preparation time for the final exam also. So that's basically the layout of the class. Just real quickly, the student resources are on Canvas, and I'm going to show you that in a second. So if you go to Canvas, our course, you'll see on the top is Student Toolkit and Resources. And so here, it links to a page that's online. And basically, it's a whole thing about technology, also other resources. So if you need resources in terms of anything to support you in terms of your learning, also things like if you have trouble with housing or food, there's resources for that also linked here. And then there's success coaches links. So there's a whole link here in terms of the toolkit. These things used to be on the syllabus, and it would take up many pages, but now it's there on Canvas. So that's it. I know that was a pretty long welcome, but I do believe that it went over some important things for you to know to be successful in the class, and I hope it also shows that I'm here to support you and help you succeed in this class and pass this class and hopefully do really well in this class. And so remember, be positive. Don't say that you can't do math. You can learn math. You can look at me as an example if you want to. Everybody can learn math. So I hope that helps you reduce your fears and have a more positive outlook for the class. So take care, and I will see you as we go along in the class.